Pronti? Paola? Accendiamo il video, please. Okay. Non dovete cambiare i vostri posti. No. No change. Sorry. No change. No change. If you want to get the graduation, you should not change. No way. Now, let's start. Sì, già li ho messi tutti. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to all of you. It's a pleasure for me to introduce the first speaker of this morning, Fabrizio Tassinari is the director of the European University Institute Executive, is the executive director of the School of Transnational Governance of the European University Institute. He will give a talk by the title of the European University Institute as a transnational hub for research and higher learning. And we are very, very grateful to Fabrizio to be here with us today. He is very busy with the, the events already ongoing at the EUA. So Fabrizio, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Maria Luisa. Can you hear me all? Is that good? Yeah, good. So thanks for the invitation. Indeed, we have a big event, our flagship event this morning. So I'm sorry I could not be with you today. In fact, I'm coming to Milan tomorrow, but that's perhaps too late. Now, Maria Luisa asked me to tell you a little bit about the European University Institute where I work, because it could be an example, or at least a possible partner for your very interesting initiative and project, at least in two respects, or at two levels. The one of governance, meaning how the institute where I work has organized itself. And secondly, the kind of approach that we have developed over the past few years, which is, as you will hear in a minute, perhaps a little bit innovative, or at least different than what might be out there in terms of teaching and training, and also teaching and training of professionals. So my third point, after introducing the governance of the EUI and the approach of my school, my third point will be to have a couple of reflections about how an initiative that aims to build a research infrastructure could potentially benefit from this approach and governance that we have developed. And then if you have any questions afterwards, I'm happy to, of course, take them. So about the EUI, the European University Institute, it is an intergovernmental organization, and it is in fact a little bit of a strange animal, because it is composed of 23 out of the 27 member states of the European Union. It's only a few Central European countries that are yet missing from our membership. But it is in every respect a research and teaching institution. So the name is already a hybrid, European University Institute. The fact that it is intergovernmental is a key element of its governance structure, because the member states and European institutions are represented on our governing body, which is called the High Council, and they meet in various formats. Most notably, they will meet they meet twice a year in a plenary format, and then in various formats through the year. And they are our, in fact, our paymasters as well as our main stakeholders. The way it operates in practice is that the Institute has developed a reputation, I would say, for being the largest doctoral and postdoctoral center in the social sciences in Europe. So we train about 400, give or take, PhD students in the areas of political science, economics, law, and history, and about 60 to 70 postdoctoral students. Each member state contributes to the training of a given number of PhD students, and that is, according to their size, really, not unlike the way it works in in other international organizations. And this is the way essentially the Institute has operated since its foundation in 1972. Now, over the past 5 years, we have had a notable change, which is in the school that I direct, and I think that was the primary reason why Maria Luisa thought it could be interesting for you to hear what we are doing. So the school that I have, I started, I founded in 2017, is a unit of the bigger institute, is a part of the institute, but it is devoted specifically to teach and train the next generation of leaders, practitioners, and I'll get to that in a minute, how we define them, on issues of transnational governance. The school is called School of Transnational Governance. And to put it in a nutshell, this is all the issues of governance that go beyond the state as the level of analysis. That is, of course, supranational, meaning European, of course, even beyond Europe. It includes the role of the private sector, for sure. And in some cases, it includes the subnational level. Tomorrow morning, we are having a very interesting meeting with 8 mayors from different European countries, including, in fact, the mayor of Bucha in Ukraine, because, there is an element of transnationality also in how cities collaborate with each other. Now, training practitioner means that for us, practitioner is essentially anybody from public sector manager to a university manager to a private sector executive that is interested in developing skills and tools to navigate in this transnational setting. And this varies from sector to sector. We teach on issues of climate policy or digital policy, security, migration, gender. In each of them, the way in which transnational translates is slightly different. But the point I would like to make, which I think it could be important also as you go ahead with your initiative, is that when you work in a transnational setting, you need to develop a slightly different skill set and a slightly different mindset as well. So to give an example, a concrete example, one of the skills trainings that we do is about transnational negotiations. How you do negotiation in a setting that is not the one of your own country. And you see, that is in itself something that perhaps also intuitively you realize it requires a different skill set. Because one thing is to negotiate in your own language, with your own cultural setting, with your own understanding of who you have on the other side of the table. And another thing is to negotiate with a different, in a different transnational setting, which doesn't only mean with people from other countries, but also people from other sectors. So a negotiation within a public and a private actor is very different than a negotiation between two private actors or two public actors. So there's this mix, this combination that we try to systematically develop. So I've told you very briefly about the governance of the Institute, member states negotiating with each other to fund the activities of the Institute. I've told you about this focus on transnational. And let me share just really a couple of very basic reflections. And this is really, I mean, this is my own personal opinion. I might be wrong, but a very brief observation about how research infrastructure might benefit from this transnational setting. My sense is that there is an element of harmonization that always has to take place when you set out transnational institutions. Unfortunately, it is more often than not the case that this harmonization often delivers what you might call the least common denominator. I mean, you never actually end up with a sort of a maximum output, a federal output, if you want to put it in European terms, where everybody somehow pulls sovereignty in a higher body, but somehow you settle for the least common.
Fabrizio, can you hear me? Fabrizio, can you hear me? We cannot hear you anymore. I mean, you are freezed. So maybe the connection is not good. It's not.
Can you hear me?
Well, we have lost the last...
I can stop the video.
2 minutes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So we have lost the last 2-3 minutes of your speech. Sorry.
It was the least important, but it was basically, I conclude then, and maybe if there are questions, we can take them. I was basically trying to say that even when you are setting out a new institution or a new organization, for example, a new research infrastructure, I mean, I'm sure you all know this, but in practice, you need to set a sort of rule book about how, and this is not, doesn't need to be a legally binding document, but it's about understanding that if you don't speak the same language in operational terms, you end up with the least common denominators, and that is not necessarily beneficial, and that is a little bit what our school has been trying to develop over the past couple of years. I stopped there for now. I hope you heard the whole of it.
Indeed, yes. Thank you very much for your presentation. Very interesting, very inspiring. And I must say that, I mean, the idea of launching a school for management of research infrastructure was really when came to us visiting the European University Institute and looking at what you are doing and the setup of the institute. So I'm really pleased to open the discussion, and so I wonder whether there are, questions from the audience. Niklas Blomberg from Elixir.
Thank you for a really interesting talk, Fabrizio. Really enjoyed that. So one of the things, and I think that resonates certainly with me leading in research infrastructure, is this coupling between the transnational and what you called subnational, but the fact that you need to make sure that you act also within the national context and then sort of project that internationally. So I wondered if you could say a few words on how you address those type of questions in the work of the Institute.
Thank you very much. That's actually a very pertinent and good question. Can you hear me all right now?
Yes.
Good. So, I mean, we have something in governance literature called multi-level governance, which is precisely the need to somehow address this at times incompatibility between the different levels of analysis and action. I mean, in reality, I will be frank with you, the national infrastructure remains the dominant one, even in our setting. So when we are speaking about a European institution that deals with even subnational actors, I will be frank and say it is still member states that call the shots about how we actually implement our operations. And that translates often, I'll be very practical, translates often in how the grants, for example, for our PhD students are allocated, because the grants are allocated on a national basis. And the member states are really adamant that this is not changed. So I'm trying to say that, as Maria Luisa said, there is an inspiration and a fascination, and certainly something to be learned by our model. But I will say that in the daily life, often what we I wouldn't call it a struggle. It is a continuous negotiation is with member states. And for example, to give you a concrete situation we are in now, our High Council, which is the governing body of all the member states, have now asked us to produce a report about the added value of the Institute's activities for the member states. And you see, that is, understandable, perfectly understandable. But in the back of their mind, again, I'm going to speak very frankly, in the back of their mind is, what does this institute bring that we don't have already in our member states? So what I'm saying is that as you set out to build your own institution, there will be this pressure all the time, the pressure of delivering something that is different than what member states can deliver. I don't know if it answers your question, but that is for us a very present dimension.
No, I think that answered the question very well, and I think many of us in the room who are running research infrastructures feel exactly the same tension and pressure, and it's probably a healthy tension, but it's always a challenge. Thank you very much.
Can I add one thing which I think is also very important? For a research institution, it is not always obvious that your added value, so to speak, is in the public debate or in the delivery to the public broadly understood, right? And this is something that, especially in the social sciences, is becoming a very thorny issue, because, of course, you see it every day, from debating the pandemic to debating the war in Ukraine. The border between sound applied research and public opinion is a very shaky and thin one. But the member states, when they often ask the added value, they want to see the added value for the citizens and the taxpayers. And again, that puts, in our case, an additional layer of pressure, because there is a border beyond which you don't want to go as an academic. But that's something that in a Ministry of Finance of a member states is an important factor.
Fabrizio, thank you very much for your not only the presentation but also the comments and and the advice that you are giving to us. I think that this can be the start of a dialogue between our family, our community, and your community, and maybe we can find more we will find more time for discussion. So if there are no other questions, the audience, from the audience, question from the audience? Not at the moment, so thank you very much. And thanks again for, joining us today.
Pleasure, and wishing you a good discussion.
And now we continue with our program. There is a change in the program. I will invite to the podium Maria Jose Rementeira, who will talk about diversity, gender aspect, learning from the Bioinfo for Women initiative.
This microphone. Is that one? This one? Yeah. This one? Yes. How do I manage this? How can I manage? The arrow. The arrow? Oh, sorry. Okay. And to point? And to point something? The other one. Maybe it's not. Okay. First of all, I want to thank you to the organization to invite me to have the opportunity to talk about the diversity and gender aspects, and also to present briefly the Bioinfo for Women program. Well, in this presentation, I divided into two different parts of the presentation. First of all, I want to talk about the why is needed to have diversity and gender aspects in the teams. Also, how to organize this and some recommendations. And in the second part of the talk, I'm just going to talk about the Bioinfo for Women program. My name is Maria Jose Rementeria, and I'm leading the Bioinfo for Women program from the Barcelona Supercomputing Center. This is just to give you the idea of which one is the existing situation for women in research. The important part is this one, is the famous scissors, what they call scissors. If you see at the predoctoral moment, we have more or less 50-50. It's equilibrated. But when we advance in the different paths of the career, then we see that at the end, in the decision level, we have for women only 27%. And this is something that we want from the Bioinfo for Women program to try to solve, what we are not going to solve, of course, but we work in this line. Well, now, all the research, big university research centers, even also the big companies, technological companies, all of them, they are including these equality and diversity units. Also, in the European Commission, since last year, it's mandatory to include in the proposal the section describing how you are going to include the gender dimension in your research project. And the question is, why it is so important, all these things? Well, there are a lot of different literature that explains a lot of what are the main reasons, why science benefits from diversity, how can you drive this innovation, creativity, then you are going to develop more talent. Basically, it's because when in the team you include diversity, what you are doing is you are including people with a different perspective of the problem, different perspective, different point of view, different proposals. And if you are able to integrate all this information, then is when you are really creating more original solutions or also innovation, and then when you really develop talent in science. Well, how to do this? It's not easy to do this. This is a project that is in collaboration between the European Commission and the Stanford University, is led by Londa Schivenger from the Stanford University, and she recommends three steps. First, to fix the number. It means to include women or include people from other, when I say diversity, I mean different age, different nationalities, different race, different culture, all these differences. The second point is to fix in the institutions. It's not enough that you include people from diverse people, but if in your institution there are not plans to integrate these people. If they are women, for example, then you need to have the gender equality plans at the institution level for the equality of the salary, equality of promotion in the career, flexibility, conciliation between the professional life and the personal life, all these kind of things that the institution has to provide for the workers. And the third point, the third step, is to fix the knowledge. It's needed that you include the gender dimension or diversity dimension in the project that you are developing. But it's not enough when you say, okay, I have a team, I have to build a team, and then for 6 people, 4 men and 2 women, but this is not enough. I put the 2 women, and then magically I'm going to have this creativity, this innovation, and everything. No. You need to work to have really a productive team. You need to work in creating a comfortable climate. This is needed. You need to work also in involve the managers to know this, to work in a non-hierarchical structure. If you in your team you still have a hierarchical structure, then you are not going to reach this. You need to develop an environment where women or people with different nationalities and so on can express themselves, can talk, and their opinions are appreciated. And then you need to create this. And if you create this, in fact, what you are doing, you are creating collective knowledge. And if you are able to do this, is when you really increase your creativity, increase the innovation, and increase the talent of the group. Well, there are some recommendations. They are from Michelle Ryan. And then recommendations, this is an article that appears last month in Nature. The common mistakes and some recommendations. She says that the first common mistake is to overemphasize on quantity. What usually happens is that, okay, I included 3 women in the team, but the task and that you provide, you assign to these women are the low-level tasks. And then this happens. And then with this, really, you are not doing anything. The low-level tasks without responsibility, tasks, and they do not have to take decisions, then, okay, it's useless. You are not creating this creativity and the innovation. The second is the managers need to be involved in the process because, she says that also to account if they are really taking care of the things. It's really important. Only going from bottom to up is not possible. We need also to go from top to bottom. And the last one is not to be over-optimistic. There are organizations where they have a majority of women, and they say, okay, I have no problem. I have a majority of women, for example, in the veterinarian or in medicine. But if you look on the women conditions, on the worker conditions, then you see there are less salary than men. There are not gender plans at the institution, all these things. And not to be over-optimistic. Recommendations. The recommendations is to improve the women visibility and the voice of women. It means really, if you are integrating diversity, if you are integrating gender equality, you need to listen these people that you are integrating. You need to listen, you need to understand what they want to say, you need to be more emphatic, and then really to integrate all the information, all the knowledge, all the proposals. The second one is, okay, well, I already say, involve the senior leaders on all of this. And the last one is, this is more for the funding institutions, not to fund projects that do not include the gender dimension. It's needed that for all the projects, engineering projects, science projects, climate projects, whatever, it's needed to include this sex and gender dimension. They change the way of looking at the problems. It's important. Well, now what I want to explain you a little bit is what we are doing at the BioInfo for Women program. This BioInfo for Women program, we started in the year 18, just because of the scissors that I showed you in the first slide. And then we want to support, we are supporting women in their scientific career, but focus on the step from senior postdoc to junior PI, because this is a difficult step for everybody, but it's more difficult for women than for men, because you have a lot of times to change from the country, to move all the family, there are more problems. But what is important is that we are not working on sociological studies, ideas, and so on. We are working on action. This is what we believe, to be active on action. And we work on the women leadership. We promote, we have 3 women that were senior postdoc, and we have now, they are working as PIs. And also we hire also women PIs from other countries. We work on the visibility and giving the voice to women. Also, we are very active in collaborations. Our intention is to create, to build a network of collaborations between organizations that work in the same ideas, international. And then in this way, we can facilitate mobility, we can facilitate the participation in activities, we can really support women in an international environment. Of course, we work in computational, 3 minutes, okay, biology, and we work on role models. At the international level, what we organize seminars, more or less, we organize 10 per year. We also organize conferences, and we are in contact with a lot of different organizations that work in this line, international organizations. We have from the States, we have from Africa, from Latin America, from Europe, in the idea of building this collaboration network. And at the Spanish level, well, what is important here is that we have a research line that we work on sex and gender bias, on health and on artificial intelligence, that we consider is really important, the topic. We have several articles already in press, and a book that will appear this month from Elsevier. And this is the one point that is important. In this research line, last year, we analyze, we present a proposal for the biohackathon, and we analyze the sex and gender bias in the human repositories. In concrete, in IGA and the DBGAP is American, IGA is European, and the metadata is there, but the values that is empty in general. Only 45% of the projects, they have the value, the information correctly in the project. This is important because If we see in the timeline, what you see here, at the beginning, in 2010, it was empty, and until 2016 was more or less empty. In 2016, what happens is it was mandatory to fill this metadata. And then it starts to be reported, the values. But we still are far from the 100% that is needed. Well, this is the idea of, we are open in the Bioinfo for Women program to collaborate with all the organizations. This idea of what we do for the different steps on the path of the scientific career. And then the final remarks, diversity leads further science. What we consider that is needed is the 5 repositories that we were talking yesterday are, of course, needed, but we want also to include the X dimension, the sex and gender dimension on those repositories. And then the last point is the Bioinfo for Women program is open to collaborate with other institutions in this idea of supporting women in the scientific career. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. The issue of gender and also the diversity is very important, and we take care of this in, first of all, in our previous project, Right Train, and the ESMRI. You can see, I mean, our...
Yeah, it was a surprise for me when I arrived here to see
they will be the next managers and leaders of research infrastructure. I mean, half of them are ladies.
Yeah, I have to say that it's not normal. Yeah. And when you work on infrastructure and these kind of things, they are more men-oriented than, congratulations.
And you will listen from Enrico, the next speaker, how we can take care, I mean, and also the diversity, the geographic diversity, and so it's very important. So Paco, I have a question.
Paco has one question.
Thank you very much, Maria. Thank you very much. This is a very necessary talk, even with this very strange group.
Yeah.
And I think of which we are part. So I think this should reflect what society is doing, right? I mean, of course, we can be also at the forefront of what society is doing for whatever reason, because we take more care of where. But one point of my question would be, what about men? In the sense of when we have activism in the areas of gender and, in principle, diversity, there are some groups that are privileged, okay? In this case, for gender is men. Now, how can men participate, and how do they do this? Because I think this is, as I say, a societal challenge. It is not for women to solve the problem. It is for the whole of society. So when you have your fellows, when you have your activism in this initiative, how many of these are men?
No one.
So this is a problem.
And I have to say more. In all the activities that we organize, just because they are organized by women, the men don't want to participate. They refuse to participate. Now what I'm doing at the Barcelona Supercomputing Center is organizing with the Spanish government some training for everybody, men and women, okay, to really present the problem to women, to give the possibility to understand. In my opinion, men do not understand really the problem. And also they have the idea they lose power. And they lose power. And both things in combination, then is part of the problem.
Well, I think it's very interesting. I was wondering whether, I mean, if I think about data regarding Italy, I mean, I think it's not correct to measure data considering the average among different fields of sciences, because there are huge differences. Like physics is like 0% for women, and then probably in the bioscience, almost. I mean, they have huge problems. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, but Fabio. But then we have Fabiola, okay. No, but in general, I was thinking about Italian universities. That's the point. No, and in bioscience instead, you have a huge number of women. So I was thinking that we have certainly a cultural problem, and maybe most of the actions that you are implementing are going that direction, even though, honestly, as a woman, I don't like to be considered as a sort of protected category, because I think it's important to be recognized as being able to do exactly what other colleagues are doing. And if I'm innovative, if I'm doing something that is valuable, I want to be evaluated for that, and not because I'm a woman. I mean, to get a sort of benefit out of that. The second point is probably we need to work also on the attractiveness of these, because I think that there is a sort of self-selection. You know that your life will be probably more complex, and it's not because of your inability to sustain the competition, but because you think that probably you have better chances in other areas, so you bet in other areas. And probably this is something that we could try to do in science, trying to improve the attractiveness of science. And for example, we are organizing a summer school for high school students, and we are willing to, of course, attract men and women. And we are also organizing a design thinking session, trying to ask them, young people, how they can be attracted towards sciences, because in Italy we have an issue also with men. And make this field more attractive. So probably we should think about it. And then there is a social dimension. I don't know if you have data about, I mean, you are from Spain, data across nations. I would be interested in understanding what are the differences, because I think that the type of organization that we have in the different nations in Europe is really impacting on the probability of women working in this field.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of literature and figures and so on. I didn't present the figures, of course. There are points, well, first, you say that you want to be validated by your work and so on. That is correct. All of us, we want to do this. We want to have this. But to have positive discrimination is needed at this moment. If we do not have this positive discrimination, we are not going to break the problem and to solve the problem. Yeah, there are a lot of, because there are not always opportunities. You are not going to have the same working opportunities as men, because we have a lot of conscious bias, and then you need to break this. This is why I want to organize this training for men and women to understand the problems. For example, one problem. In a team, in a meeting, then women propose an idea, a solution. Nobody takes care of this. Everybody ignores what she's saying. This is quite normal. 10 minutes later, a man says the same thing, and everybody says, "Oh, what idea, that's nice." This happens. This happens today. And it's needed. This is why it's needed to train men and women to put these situations on top of the table, and then they realize what happens. But it's unconscious. Men do not realize that this is happening. And then what happens at the end is women is not going to propose more ideas because nobody is listening. And then the solution of the institution is training to women to defend their ideas in a meeting. You understand? And then we have to break this. This is what I mean. If not, it's a circle of the problem.
Let's give the floor to a man.
Okay, yeah. Oh, sorry, sorry.
So I have a dreaded comment and a question. But the first, what struck me with your first slide, when you showed the divergence of men and women in different positions in academia, is we focus on that's well known, and we see these statistics all the time. But we focus on a very narrow number of roles, which is the sort of research professor type roles. And I think if we look at this school and the type of roles that we are training for here, that's a completely different set of roles. It's more the research management type roles in academia. And So I think my reflection is, I think it's a little bit dangerous to focus only on the research career path as an outcome of a doctoral study at a higher education institute, because there are many other career paths that are equally attractive, and I think we should also see how they are developing and look at the gender balance in these career paths, because it might be that actually there is a fundamental problem in the research career path that could be learned and imported from other career paths. Because my experience is I see a lot of very, very good women consciously picking other career paths after their PhD, and that's because the research career path is usually not very attractive.
Yeah.
And the corollary of that is that we are recognizing these as really sort of valuable career paths after your PhD. It's easy that we only sort of reward the research career paths and say, well, this is really what counts. All the other things are sort of semi-failures, and I think that perspective, I think, is dangerous. Anyway, that was my comment. The question is, I mean, we are talking about setting up a school and we're talking about training here. What are the most important skills that we should be training people in your mind?
To train people in the diversity, to train that diversity is needed, to put on the table all these kind of situations where the diverse people, okay, it's not listened, not taken into account. Okay, and there are current situations, but it's needed that someone goes and tells you, these are the situations, this happens, you have to react in this way. Also to the managers, if you are training managers here, it's very important to do all of this. This is something that I mentioned before. We are working with the Spanish Ministry to do this kind of training at the Barcelona Supercomputing Center. At this moment, I do not have the information, but as soon as we develop this, or I have information, I can send you the experience, what happens, if it works or not, or what are the problems, or all of this. We are organizing 3 levels of training, basic level for everybody. The second level is for the managers who have people working with them. And the third level is for the top directors, 3 levels. But we are still in the process of organizing this.
Maria, thank you very much. I saw several hands, but time is,
yeah, it's a
time
very,
constraint
very,
because we are,
this
but
topic.
we will organize a specific workshop on this very soon, and we will invite you again, and so we will have a chance to discuss more, and you will have chance also to discuss during the coffee break after that. So, but now I invite, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
I invite,
thank you.
to the podium, Enrico, who you all know very well. We will talk about management challenges in research infrastructure and the ESMRI experience.
Thank you, Maria Luisa. The ESMRI experience is here.
In fact.
Here. I have very short minutes to talk. For those who don't know who is ESMRI, I was just very brief, want to share with you some personal thoughts on this topic, but it will require more time. And then we'll just summarize some main issues of these long years of starting 2017, first edition of ESMRI. As you know, some of you already knows, my background is in management, and so the field of research infrastructure management was for me very new. I started in working with the Maria Luisa team starting from 2015 from RightTrain. Then we launched this very beautiful initiative of management of research infrastructure MBA. And when we approached this proposal from her, my first question was, like the similar we had yesterday, do we need a school, specialized school for this? Because as you know, there are a lot of general management MBA worldwide, Europe, whatever. So we need a specialized MBA for training this kind of people. And the answer was yes. But of course, high-level position in management could be also led by people not necessarily with a scientific background, maybe also people coming from company, private company, and or whatever. No, this kind of organization are very peculiar. They are scientists who need special training for management and leadership. Okay, and I've been convinced over time that probably we need this. Maybe, yeah, still now. But maybe since this is a very small niche, I would say, maybe in the next 10 years, 4 years, maybe we don't need any more some specific training, because you can also attend general manager classes worldwide, and also private company could benefit to have peer-to-peer learning from the context of this infrastructure, maybe. So you will see it in the same class with private company, top leaders and whatever. But now, in this cycle of management education for research infrastructure, I think it's good to start thinking of specialized school, specialized MBA for you, and executive education target for particular. It's almost quite the same as you can see on the market. Just make a small survey. You can see specialized course for international organizations management or public sector managers, which are very peculiar in terms of rules, institution, or whatever. So in such case, I think it's not strange to have some specialized training initiative, or also school. Because government, Harvard, for example, have a Harvard School of Government, for example, which is quite different from that on private. So I think I would summarize some personal thought on that. The first struggle for me was to understand your context. And it's still now more difficult to frame the borders of the RI ecosystem. So I've tried I've now understood a little bit more that we have circle, that we can start from the bottom. We have core facilities.
After 7 years, he's a man.
Yeah, I'm still learning. But also thanks to you, not only. So correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe we have core facilities inside specific organizations or specific autonomous research center. We have research performing organizations, which maybe I will look in CNR, maybe one of these, with different facilities inside. So this is circular increasing. And we have also consortia. If you look at ERIC or something like an international organization like CERN, IGOS, EMBL, and whatever. So the problem is that this kind of picture, correct me, Francesco, if I'm wrong, doesn't make too much sense, because the reality is much more complex. The color doesn't help too much, because there are some overlaps between this kind, and the relationship between these kind of organizations are very, very complex. So we could call hybrid organizational settings with a lot of complexities. So we have discussed it also with our faculty member from the Faculty of Management here at the Cocca, when all this faculty was involved in this project, and I trained in launching, designing the master program in which you have attended, if we could adapt some of the management framework to your context or whatever. So some comments from colleagues was, oh, it's like multinational, so distributed RIs may be same management problem, maybe, but I think they are more complex and sometimes very different. When we look at the research infrastructure consortia initiative, I learned a lot, because I see that some of these community have a sort of startup cycle. So you, as scientists, start in a specific field to work together, make joint research, meetings, conference, and whatever, and then you work on grants, and you have a sort of maturity over this community. And maybe it takes also 10 years. And then when we start to seed this kind of consciousness of RI, yesterday we have learned that some leaders, some scientific leaders want to serve as a service provision for other colleagues. Then start the seed of research infrastructure, which has been common in STEM. Recently also in social science, but it's not common like in STEM situation, because also in management we have no kind of infrastructure like this, because our community have a different kind of research tradition or whatever. So, and then you can start a sort of RI design study, and then we have also some support from European Union to move forward in this perspective. And so now we have a lot of situation in which in this kind management and leadership skills are needed, because you are always a community, but to enter into a permanent organizations, especially following the requirement of ESMRI, you need a specific learn on the business model, sustainability, financial management, whatever. So once the community building starts in the design study, as you know, you enter in a phase of preparations, then you discuss a governance, business plan, business model, legal entity, and then you start operation or whatever. So the evolution...
He learned a lot, huh? He learned a lot.
No, just a small piece. When you start the operation, then of course we have more established one, and also people in well-established research infrastructure have entered in this program in order to frame better their initiative. So in such case, we started framing the ESMRI MBA, because I didn't learn too much at that time, on the case of RIs as consortia, okay? So we learn single side, distributed infrastructure. So when we, in the next edition, we also included on board some core facilities. So we start also a lot of people from facility entering this kind of, in my mind, when I say research infrastructure, I don't have in mind just ERIC or consortia, I have all the facilities and whatever. But maybe it's a matter of label. Sometimes if you RIs, some people can just refer to the consortia, or we need to add core facilities. Yesterday in the chat, someone say, oh, don't forget core facilities, because the label was RIs. So most of you already know what the program structure we design is. These people are very busy agenda, and so we need to have a part-time MBA split over time. So to be flexible, we have also discussing. I remember at that time if you could also arrange a sort of weekend formula. So after 1 week you come in the place in Milan, and said, no, it was not able. But as you know, in private company, top executive do it over the weekend, but it's not feasible. So we find a good balance in such a way to have modules split, someone on campus and 7 full online. So this is a university degree master, so it's 60 ECTS. And we arranged also the design of modules according to what we did in RI train competence profile. And also we were inspired by the competence profile for CERN, ESA, and other international organizations. So what is important also, I would summarize here, the field project is an important part of this program. You're learning over these 2 days a very interesting initiative in which most of you have applied some of the tools, or we have also some situation in which the field project has been the opportunity for people, especially from the people coming in the infrastructure, in the design, or in the preparatory phase to develop better the strategic plan, the business model, the business plan for the ESF application, and in some kind have been succeeded. I don't think not just because of the participation of ESMRI, of course, but because we select very excellent people. So this is the sample week, as you know, just 2 days and a half in Milan, so very flexible. We have just one long on-campus module on leadership, but the other one are more flexible. The faculty was arranged around the Department of Management here at Bicocca, but we also collected external visiting faculty from other universities, but especially from RIs and the research infrastructure ecosystem. In that was Maria Luisa was for sure, and now I have a lot of friends also in this kind of relationship. And also we also use different teaching methodologies, just not lecture, but you know, but cases from private companies also arise. And in this perspective, we need you in the next edition. As you have seen, we are also involving past alumni for presenting their experience and what they have learned for the benefit for the next classes. In terms of the structure of attendance, we all already were flexible. including the possibility to enter the full master as an individual, and so completing the full master certificate, but also we also arranged the possibility to attend as a team, sharing the modules between a team of member team from the infrastructure. So in such case, you can also enter the program later and complete the program, or just taking standalone modules and also get certificates for each module and then enter later on to complete the full master. And today we have both kind of people who attended the forum. So ESMRI is for women also. Some data of these 3 classes. We have also running the 4th intake still ongoing, but I've summarized some data. So we have very good gender balance situation. The average age is 45. We have also people under 40, over 50, but it's a good balance of that. We have also a good country representation. We're not listed because we have people from Sweden, Finland, Germany, Italy, Spain, Czech Republic, and Austria, UK, Spain, yeah, sure. And now we have 65 full master graduated over these 3 intake. And if you include also the team professional training, we have also additional 80 people attending standalone or sharing, splitting. So at the moment, starting 2017, we have 100.5 people in the RI ecosystem who have in some way attended this complete process, whatever.
You are part of a big family, huh?
Yeah, sure. We should be proud, and we are proud of you. Job profile has been from middle to top level, appointed leaders, as Paco yesterday also told us. Paco, of course, was just a senior policy officer at that time and then became, but we also had the people, executive leader like Ilaria Nardello, probably today is not here.
She will come.
At that time, she entered the program as an executive director of BRC in Paris, and we also had some people, as you have also here, Bassem, but also the director, we have learned from Alicia Zoffer from Ekran, that heads of CFO, and we have also here Van Mathieu. So in such case, it's interesting also for people, not just for a scientific background, to enter in this class to better learn this context. We have a lot, Eric, other kind of legal entities, a lot of facility and European RIs which has entered this program, and as a team or as individual. So at the moment we have a lot of connection. So the module design is already, but what is interesting here, and we learn a lot here, the design of module and delivery also is done jointly with experts from RIs. And we need also to work with you in the next future to develop something. I'm going very, very fast on that, on the lesson learned. So co-production knowledge, as already I told you, is very important in this perspective. You are learning from each other, but also we are learning from you, and we are just sharing our tools, frameworks, and create new value, new knowledge. And in this perspective, what is needed in the next future is more field research, more cases from specific case from your context. And we will be happy, as we yesterday heard from Montserrat, if you have time and interest to go ahead with your field project, make a publications, or also if you have time to think about cases of your infrastructure to be developed and to develop a sort of case collections also in this case of research infrastructure will be very benefit also for traditional business school target to private companies, because private managers working in private environment could learn a lot in terms of complexities running this kind of research activities and consortia in international, transnational governance settings. So in this perspective, we want you on board. So it's not just finishing today. Thank you.
Thank you, Enrico. No question for you. No. So a quick coffee break, and we will convene here in really 5 minutes. Yeah. So grab a coffee and come back, because we should be on time for the graduation. Yeah. So coffee break, and then we will continue with the speech, and then the graduation will be at 11. Huh?
When is Alessandra speaking?
I shall ask Alessandra.
Is she going at the end?
Maybe at the end. Or you want to move her now? I mean, Alessandra. She said that she was happy also to do. Alessandra, are you happy to do the last talk, or you want to move here now?
Whatever is, what do you think is better for the concept? You know,
I think we could end with Erasmus Plus. It's really nice. I mean, it's a nice thing to end on, isn't it? Because it's
Yes. So
it's
you
big,
will be
it's
at the end.
European.
yeah.
Okay. So at the end. Okay. So
Okay.
but she
Is
was
that
fine.
okay?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Perfect.
I
Because
was, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
We already
it's
discussed
nice, it's
this.
big and European, and yeah, good.
Perfect.
Be on time, huh?
Yes,
Be on time.
I will.
I will have to I hate to interrupt the bus of the coffee break. It's great to see all the discussions, but we need to get started to make sure that we don't miss the next big event of the day, which is the ESMRI graduation. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Antonino Rotolo from the University of Bologna, who will talk about micro-credentials and lifelong learning. So please, Antonino.
Thank you very much. I use this one? Okay. Okay, I know I have 10 minutes, so first of all, thank you for inviting me. This talk briefly presents, I share my slot with my colleague from University of Bologna who will take another part of the story. This part of the story has to do with micro-credentials. Actually, is reports on what we are doing in the work package of Retrain Plus. And first of all, I would like to thank all people who work on this work package. It's not just a matter of a single contribution, it's a matter of contribution many institutions. And I would like also to mention Monica Forni, who is really the heart of this work package. So this is the first thing I would like to say. Second, I would like to give now the outline of the talk, what I'm going to speak about. So the context, the training value chain, which is how, the basic idea behind what we are doing in this work package. And then I will mention briefly a pilot case we are designing for the training. So one of the advantages of being a second day is that you listen to the first day contributions. So what I learned in the first day, that the context, the institutional context for institutions is very complex. You have research institutions, you have research infrastructure, you have research, you have universities, you have policymakers, you have the national dimension, you have research ecosystem, you have the data cloud, you have all things interacting in this complex ecosystem, and you can't ignore the complexity of the environment for setting the training problem, right? For addressing this training problem. So the value chain of training, the idea is that you may have different people to be trained, right? And who could train? So you have, of course, research infrastructure and core facility managers. You have the future researchers and managers, students, in all levels, bachelor, master's, and PhD students. They also are part of the system, okay? And then, of course, you have scientists. And yesterday we learned also that you could have also policymakers, but this is quite another story. So the question is, of course, you must train all these people, because otherwise the ecosystem doesn't work. You have an ecosystem like a graph. You have different nodes in the graph. So you can't work on a single node in the graph. You must work on all nodes in the graph. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Simply doesn't work. So you have to train managers, you have to train scientists, but our bet is also to train students. And that's the point. And then the goal is to train all. Of course, training managers is important, but the question is, if you want to have an efficient ecosystem in terms of the functioning of a research infrastructure, you must train students too, right? The question is, who's training whom? Right? Scientists are supposed to train, yes, of course. Yesterday some people said that, right, but it's not enough. You need experts. And experts means what? So this is an open question. Then, of course, you have to harmonize training programs. So because you may have different targets, you may have different contents, you may have different formats for training programs, right? Micro-credentials, very small. They are very agile. They are flexible. But we also have masters. We also have larger programs. So in this work package, in order to work on the content on the training, we thanks to some partners, we worked on we work on a mixed method approach to create evidence-based databases for understanding what is particular heads of research infrastructure are expected to see in a training program. So we did some questionnaires to research infrastructure heads, in 8 different countries, because geographical distribution is very important. You know, the perception you have in a certain country is different from the perception you have in other countries. Because much depends on the quality of research infrastructure you have in a certain country. Of course, many research infrastructure are international, but they are not all like that. And research infrastructure are not in isolation. They don't operate in isolation. They operate within a scientific ecosystem, a research ecosystem, and research is different in different countries, as we know very well. The results of these questionnaires are from the perspective of what we expect from the head and managers. The managers expect to see communication skills at different levels. This is an important point. They said they expect to see organizational leadership. Leadership was a word that was mentioned yesterday. And staff management, and academic excellence and deeper knowledge of the respective fields of science. From the perspective of the employees, from the perspective of all those who are working in the research infrastructure, they expect to see academic excellence, flexibility and curiosity, interdisciplinarity, something that was mentioned yesterday. So we expect to see these type of competencies, right? So not vertical competencies, you know? We expect to see communication skills on different levels. Again, also on employers level, not only at the heads level. And the service orientation and support. Service was another word that was mentioned yesterday, right? So it's very interesting that our research is confirming what you mentioned yesterday at the policy level, strategic level. And then okay, I have 4 minutes. And then we work for designing a new micro-credential. It's still in design phase. So, but the question was you know, a micro-credential can serve in 2 ways. Can be an appetizer. So you are not just working for providing full knowledge, but you just work on the culture of a research infrastructure, right? Because you start providing some ideas, you're just feeding, and you just stimulate people. Of course, students in the bachelor are beginners, but we could also enlarge to other types of beginners, right? Micro-credentials are very flexible. So basic knowledge about research infrastructure and core facilities, and the idea was to touch in a 2 days intensive course in a very flexible way, important topics like, you know, the very concept of research infrastructure, you know, because when I started as a vice rector 6 years ago, when some people went to me and say, look, what is research infrastructure? And we started looking for the definitions. It's not, if you ask scientists what they think about research infrastructure, they said, well, scientists don't know very well what research infrastructure are, right? My lab is research infrastructure, right? But, you know, it's, and then the question is to teach them what is data governance, management, and open research data. What is research integrity, which is part of a good functioning of a research infrastructure, is a very important point, right? And, you know, scientists are reluctant to see those components as as enablers. They see as obstacles for good research, but research is in fact made by this, because this is an extension of the scientific method, you know, and scientists should know that the scientific method is not just knowing a certain discipline, but means you following the scientific method, and the scientific method is based on that. Of course, there are some specific issues like interoperability, impact, networks, methods. Working at different types of research infrastructure is important. We also think that it's important to teach, to explain all this stuff using the 3 different ERC sectors. This doesn't mean that students of a certain ERC sector are only following that unit. All students will follow the 3 units, but the organization in terms of ERC sectors, I think, is interesting for students. So the structure is the following. It's just 2 days. And then you have a first day of general topics. definition and topic. The second day, a deepening on the three different levels, the three different contexts of ERC sectors, macro sectors. The former, I think, is the best way is to have a blended way, because you have to enlarge, maximize the impact of your micro credentials. And that's it. Yes, I think I finished in 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Antonino. That was excellent. I think we do have time for one question if there is something from the audience.
Maybe after the second part.
Yes, maybe after the second part. That's right. Thank you, Maria Luisa. So then in our slightly focused schedule this morning, I'd like to introduce the second speaker, so Emilio, who will continue the work or the presentation on micro-credentials and working towards a common innovation ecosystem in Europe. So please, Emilio.
Thank you. Okay, let me briefly introduce myself and explain also what I'm going to present you. I'm Emilio Urbinati, and I work as research advisor at the University of Bologna, and I act also as a project manager of the project UnaResin. UnaResin is the research project of the Alliance UnaEuropa, and UnaEuropa is one of the 41 alliances that the European Commission is funding in order to develop the future European university. There is some connection with the micro-credential, but not that much. I will present actually the project, UnaResin, and also the work that Unibo did about the research infrastructures and resources. Then, first of all, actually, I would like to thank you for inviting me, because it's, we started to think with the Professor Forni about the possibility to connect the two projects, and maybe this is the first chance to introduce UnaResin. Then we are also thinking about to organize a joint meeting of the two projects in order to capitalize our results and maybe have a part of the path together. Then, about the UnaResin project, this is a Horizon 2020 project led by the University of Edinburgh, and as you can see, the general aim is strengthen the research and innovation aspects of UnaEuropa. Then, creating a common research and innovation ecosystem for our researchers and partners, in order to create the university for the future and setting the global standard for international research collaboration and education. This is just about the aim, with the general objective to prepare for the next wave of global challenges and also make research more interdisciplinary and international. Then, about the methodology, the project is divided in 4 work packages that are connected to the primary transformation modules. So, common RNI agenda, sharing infrastructure and resources, strengthening human capital, and sharing best practices with the UnaEuropa universities. We also have 3 transversal transformation modules about the cooperation with non-academic actors, open science, and embedding citizen and society. And to complete the methodology, we have also the support of 5 self-steering committees related to the area cultural heritage, One Health, data science and artificial intelligence, European studies and sustainability. And we also have an expert cluster groups. So these are 6 groups of experts from technical experts from the 8 universities of the UnaEuropa Alliance. Here you can see that the leading role is from the University of Edinburgh, while the work package 1 is led by the University of Helsinki with the contribution of the Freie University of Berlin. And the work package 2 is actually the one about infrastructure and resources, and is led by the University of Bologna with the help of KU Leuven and Paris-Sorbonne. The working package 3 about human capital is led by Jagiellonian University with the help of Pariwan and Universidad Complutense de Madrid. The project is divided in some specific steps, and the first one is about the mapping of the barriers, the mapping in order to identify the barriers to the seamless collaboration and sharing of enablers of R&I cooperation. Then the different actors of the project will develop shared strategies and action plans, together the three main work packages, R&I strategy, research infrastructures, and human capital strategy. This is followed by pilot actions, which are models to accelerate cross-disciplinary and cross-sectoral collaboration. And finally, the evaluation of pilots and the dissemination of lessons learned. I skip the expected impact, and I talk about the work package number 2, so the one led by the University of Bologna. And here you have the objectives of this work package, which is about the sharing of research infrastructure and resources. So the first objective was map and analyze the assets, needs, barriers, and enablers for sharing RIS, and I use the past tense because this is done. Also, the second objective is done, which was create the cluster on sharing R&Rs and the cluster on mainstreaming open science. Then we are currently working on developing the shared strategy and action plan, and then we will focus on investigating synergies and common best practices, the pilot actions, as said before, and widening access to R&Rs to citizens and academic actors, and finally to dissemination and recommendations. So, about the methodology, we started from the definition of infrastructure of the European Commission. So we are talking about facilities that provide resources and services for research communication to conduct research and foster innovation, which is quite a broad definition. An important methodological point is that the work package 2 is focused on 2 interdisciplinary global challenges, one health and cultural heritage. Then, in the deliverable 2.1, sharing, mapping on sharing research infrastructures and resources, we conducted 3 mapping exercises, 1 strategic benchmarking questionnaire and 2 questionnaires for the thematic mapping of R&Rs. Okay, in the first strategic benchmarking questionnaire, we focused on the policies, the funding mechanism, organizational and management models of the infrastructures at the institutional level for the 8 universities of Una Europa Alliance. And then in the other 2 mapping exercises, we focused on the single infrastructures of the 8 universities. So we identified the assets and understand the barriers, enablers, complementarities, and potential synergies for sharing the R&Rs. About the results, here you have the index of the section 1 about the benchmarking, and you can see the content. Basically, we understood the reason why it's necessary to pull this vast constellation of large scale and small and medium-sized infrastructures. First one is to engage a wide community of stakeholders, because there are, of course, in 8 universities a lot of infrastructure, especially the small and medium-sized. And then allow the multiple interconnection that already exist with the ESMRI level infrastructures, and then create a common space for knowledge, tools, and practices exchanges. We created also, let's say, a labeling initiative, which is a 4 steps path in order to improve the sharing of the research infrastructures and resources. The first one is to have common principles, maybe through a charter of research infrastructures. The second one is to allocate seed funding for some initial research collaboration. Then there is the strength of skills and knowledge, and here is the contact with the RITrain Plus project. And finally, to advocate at the EU level for funding calls more oriented towards the sharing of research infrastructures. Of course, there are also some challenges, and especially the different funding schemes of the RNIs in the different universities, the different levels of structures and management models, and finally, technical, logistical, legal, and financial constraints. Here we are in the section number 2. So this is the thematic questionnaire about infrastructure in cultural heritage. And the methodology was to define a concept note to describe the survey, then a questionnaire. We collected 113 questionnaires in the 8 universities, and which is quite good. And on the right, you have the index of this chapter, and there are 13 different items of analysis of these infrastructures mapped. Of course, we produced a data set and an elaboration with Power BI software. Here you have just one item underlined, which is the main barriers to sharing, which is in cultural heritage, financial constraints, in general, registration constraints and bureaucracy, and then only fourth, lack of specialized staff and training, which maybe is interesting for your project. While in the field of One Health, these barriers is the first one, and this is the main difference, talking about the main barriers to sharing of the RNIs. Then there are, of course, many other items to compare the two fields. Okay, next steps of the project implementation. We will, of course, disseminate this mapping exercise, and we would like also to build some possibility to share these data sets in order to be used, and maybe also make some matchmaking for researchers. And also enrich this mapping exercise with more infrastructures, because as you saw, the number still is quite low compared to what the 8 universities, of course, have inside. Then we are about to organize a co-creation workshop, inviting the respondents, some of the respondents to the questionnaire, in order to create together some inputs to go to the next steps about the 2 minutes. Okay, about the building of the strategy and the action plan. And then, of course, we will move to the co-design of the pilot actions. A last slide, which was requested, is about the connection at the Unibo of the data policy and the infrastructures. We are adopting a policy on research data, and there is also a new figure, a new role, which is the one about data steward. And this data steward will act as in support of the research area in order to ensure the compliance with the rules regarding the research data, and also to promote the open science principles within the academic community. This will impact also on the infrastructures, because they will define the specific tools, resources and services according to the different disciplines, in order to ensure the compliance with the open science regulation. And this was the last slide.
Thank you very much, Emilio, and thank you, Antonino. I think we have time for 1 or 2 quick questions. These are really 2 very interesting presentations. I hope we will have opportunity to elaborate on this also later. So are there any questions from the audience? Yes, I see one here.
Thank you, Niklas. Yes, I have some comments on the micro-credential approach that you just presented, because to me it's very interesting because it's really broadened the possibility to give education to a wide range of people interested in working in research infrastructure. And to me, it would be valuable to explore the possibility to combine education with certification. Because yesterday we were talking about project management certification, which is different from education, because they certify your expertise in working in project management. Because there are these entry-level certification that certify your knowledge, and usually students apply for them. And then to go further in this certification, you really need to lead projects for a certain amount of time. So mutuating this for research infrastructure could be interesting, to see if there is the possibility to have a certification that certify that you work a certain amount of years in research infrastructure, and that you have the knowledge to manage certain part of the certain managerial activities in research infrastructure. And the second idea is to combine it also with standards, because I think here at ESMRI we are building standards for research infrastructure management, because we are attending training, and this training is evolving over the years with these new ESMRI intakes years by years. So it would be also interesting to see if we can create standards, certified standards for research infrastructure management that certify, it's really certify and standardize how we manage research infrastructures.
Thank you. Yes, I think you're right. There are two interesting perspectives. I mean, certification is definitely part of the story. Also, standardization, I think, is an issue. If I may, just this 1 second, because I know we are behind schedule, is just to give a connection between the micro-credential and what Emilio said about Una Europa. When we started discussing about alliances, long time ago, was the day after Emmanuel Macron said to establish an alliance between among universities, now, okay? It was about after the Brexit. And we started discussing, and in fact, we said one way for promoting cooperation within an alliance in terms of training and teaching was precisely micro-credentials. Because micro-credentials are a very flexible way. So in the perspective of developing micro-credential within Una Europa for research infrastructure, I think the experiment could be developing micro-credential on research infrastructures within Una Europa. And then I think this is an interesting bridge between Retrain Plus and Una Racing. So just to give you because research infrastructure are shared, right, within a network of universities. So I think this could be interesting. Also from your perspective, because we are working for certifications of degrees within the alliance. As precisely in Retrain Plus, we are working on a European certification for training or research infrastructures. Yes.
I see that there are more questions. I think we need to draw this to a close and move on to the next speaker. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, Sarah, and I'm sorry, others who raised their hands. But I just as a reflection, it was also really nice to see the reference on the last slide on some of the work that's been done across research infrastructure on data management. So with that, we move on to our last presentation today, which is Alessandra Gallerano from University of Padua. But she will also talk about the Erasmus Plus projects and how they have moved towards European degrees. So please, Alessandra, we're really pleased to have you here today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here. And my perspective will be a bit different, not so centered on research and research infrastructures, but to show you a little bit of another example on how to build transnational educational models. I wanted to give you a bit of a background on what EU policies have been doing so far in terms of joint programs and joint transnational educational models. Looking forward also to the building of the so-called European degrees that are now being debated at the European Commission, Council and Parliament. And also just some issues, let's say, that we should consider when developing these joint programs and these joint transnational efforts to put together education, research and so on. Some key challenges based on our experience and also some opportunities. So at my institution, the University of Padua, I'm managing and leading the team on projects and mobility, and we do a lot of international joint programs and consultancy for academics wishing to build these programs. So we have seen a bit of these challenges and also opportunities. So really the discussion around joint degrees and joint educational offers started with the Bologna process and the discussion in Berlin back in 2003. So that was the first moment where really the joint degree issue was put on the table. So why did we want to promote these joint degrees? Was it only for employability? Not really, but it was also really to provide institutions a way to collaborate to a step further, so to increase and also deepen their collaboration. So then basically at the European Union level, which is part of course of the Bologna process, there was a discussion on, okay, what can we do now financially also to support this initiative? And the Erasmus Mundus program was launched back in 2004. So the idea of launching a program that was supporting this joint degrees development and joint program development was really to trial a little bit the development of these joint programs, and also to try to launch a program that could relaunch a little bit also the image of the European Union as an attractive study destination compared also to the US and other global actors in the field. So there was a strong focus on this at the time, and actually if we look back, the program really managed to do so and bring to Europe lots of international students. And of course, it was also a way to encourage from the bottom modification and changes in the legislation. That's what the Commission does all the time, actually. So they promote programs that don't have solutions yet, and you have to find a solution from the bottom. So that's what happened with Erasmus Mundus. And I don't know how familiar you are with that type of program, but the idea of Erasmus Mundus and its various developments, you are an Erasmus Mundus student, that's great. That's great to hear. Is also to have really transnational master programs, open potentially to all disciplines, also promoting interdisciplinarity, and that are delivered by a group of universities or institutions. So that's the key, let's say, principles of the Erasmus Mundus program. In addition to that, the program also offers really big financial contributions to scholarships for students from all over the world. So there has been an evolution in the program, as you see. So starting from 2014, the program was included in the wider Erasmus Plus umbrella program. And it is now continuing with the new funding program, the new Erasmus Plus program. So over the past 18 years, we had over 500 Erasmus Mundus master programs involving over 600 institutions. That's amazing, actually, if you think of it. And almost 25 students worldwide. So also you see the budget investment was really important, and the European Commission is continuing to invest in this sense, even with higher amounts also of scholarships. So at the time, a few years ago, then there was a feeling like, okay, now we have learned how to do Erasmus Mundus, what can we do next? So there was the need to launch something a bit more ambitious. And so I'm going back to also what colleagues from Bologna said. During a speech, Macron launched the idea of these European universities. I always wonder how aware he was of the impact his small talk had at the time. But what happened is that the Commission kind of took his words and said, oh, that's a great idea. Let's create a new program, a new challenge for universities to respond to. And the European University Initiative, that's the way it is called, was launched in 2018. So what are these European universities? It's really transnational alliances of universities, and it's a hugely ambitious project of the European Commission. And universities are kind of struggling a little bit to keep up also to the expectations of the European Commission. But the idea is to develop long-term alliances that could bring cooperation really to the next level. So at all levels, from teaching to research, and also combining different sources of fundings. So as you heard before, the example of the project funded by Horizon 2020, there are also another part is funded by the Erasmus Plus program. So we now have, as you can see, 41 European alliances running all over Europe. There has just been a new call now to also increase this number and provide additional funding for the next 6 years. So possibly in 6 years' time, we will also have legal statuses for these universities. So I think this can be interesting for the discussion for your program and your school as well. The budget is quite high, still not so high if you consider all the activities that are being developed, and all member states and universities are co-funding these initiatives, also with very important investments. So within this broader idea of European universities, now the European Commission is pushing towards what is called European degrees. So it's really like Erasmus Mundus programs to the next level. So something even larger that should be awarded jointly by these transnational alliances of universities. So really bringing together joint management, joint services, strategic joint goals. And at the moment, there are still so many obstacles at different levels, so legal, administrative, and so on. So what the European Union is trying to do at the moment, and we are actually at the very beginning of this process, is again to launch a sort of label, European degree label, that could help address and remove possibly all these obstacles at national and European level, and assess, let's say, the feasibility of a European degree. So this is very much linked to this idea of European universities like an inter-university campus, and also the idea of the European Union is to imagine a campus where students and staff could move as freely as in their home institution, and universities should be encouraged to offer really flexible and also personalized educational paths. So that's also, I think, very relevant in your context. And also this educational offer should be innovative, challenge-based, and with several, let's say, innovative pedagogies also included in it. So now we are in the process of, let's say, designing this label, trying to identify which key features this European degree should have. And at the moment, it's being debated at ministry level. And what we have seen, at least from the documents, it's certainly there will be 3 dimensions attached to the future European degrees. So transnational dimension, the flexible curricula, also linked to micro-credentials. So the idea that you can take a whole degree, but you can also just take some parts and combine the different options. And then there is a strong dimension also on inclusion that is linked to what we heard this morning, that is very important in these alliances as well. So really, this is a little bit to give you the context and the policy environment in which we as universities are working and trying to contribute also. And now looking at the practical side of this, so how does this reflect in the daily work and also the concrete support we can give to develop these programs. So what I usually also tell academics that come to our office and ask, okay, can you help us create this international program? So the first question is really why? Why do you want to do that? Okay, so is there a market for your program? Why do you want to do it jointly? And what is your added value? So that's really key. And I know you are debating this with your partners. Then, of course, you need to consider the structure. So here we're talking about courses, master program, but also bachelor PhDs that are developed jointly by institutions. So who is contributing to what? How do you bring that together? Of course, accreditation, the legal framework, also academic feasibility. I mean, do you have the infrastructure, the teachers, and everything to contribute? The mobility, so mobility is still strong in this program. So are you going to move your students? Are you having only virtual mobility? Are you having a blended format? And lots of administrative issues, finances, and so on. So you just need to be aware that you are going to discuss these issues. And first and foremost, you need to be aware that you have to get the right people on board. So sometimes when I talk to our professors, then the answer is, oh my God, that's so complicated. We're never going to do it. I said, no, you're not going to do it alone. You have to have a team. And our office is here, and the accreditation office is working on that. And the leadership also needs to support the project. Otherwise, you don't go very far if the leadership says no. So it's just important to know it's a big teamwork and you cannot do it alone. And then we usually use a sort of a table, comparison table, where you compare the, let's say, the status of the different institutions and then how you're going to find a joint solution. So I won't go into detail with this, but we can, of course, discuss it later if you want. And just to give you an example, I took this also because it's a bit more than just a joint program. It's a European School of Material Science and Engineering. Padua is currently entering this school, so we're in the process of, joining something already existing. But just to show you how it is a little bit structured, 7 universities. And there are lots of different options of mobility. So also in the sense of flexibility, students can pick and choose a little bit what they want. And then depending on their choices, also they get different degrees. So that's just, of course, a model. There are numerous different models that you could opt for. But it's just good also to brainstorm around this. And yeah, a little bit on common challenges that we see when developing those programs. Of course, accreditation is still a big issue, especially if you want to build a university degree program. So that's not the case. Maybe in your case, it's a 60 CTS, it's more professional course, so that's not so much maybe the issue. But also different academic calendars when you're combining the partners, joint enrollment, joint selection. It might sound all very simple, but then you have to decline it in the different contexts. And not all universities are up to speed with this. And going back to this European degree label, they sent out a questionnaire. And actually, if you see, still 92 universities say there are administrative and legal obstacles, and we need help to remove those. So despite 20 years almost of Erasmus Mundus and these programs, there's lots to do in this direction. And of course, there are operational issues and challenges, so also international student management. I think you're all very used to this. financial obstacles. It's really important to have a good business plan and ensure sustainability of the program. Maybe also consider funding for scholarship in order to ensure this diversity and inclusion of participants, so not all have equal access to this type of opportunities. And then some recent trends that we saw that kind of influence and added some of the challenges we had certainly not considered in the past, like the pandemic, but also safety and security. That's very relevant now. So you really have to have that in mind when designing a program. Ecological considerations, in the sense that are we really ready still to create programs where students have to move every 6 months? Do we want that? Is it green and sustainable enough? So that's another debate at the moment. And of course also tuition fees policies in some countries, especially in Northern Europe, for international students and so on. So what I always say is you need to be very creative, lots of ideas, and also propose lots of solutions, but it's possible. And there's, as you saw with the Erasmus Mundus programs, over 500 programs, and there are many more that are not Erasmus Mundus. So it's really happening at European level all the time. So just some reflections, let's say. Certainly you have to think ahead, so really analyze and make a sort of feasibility assessment before starting the effort, and discuss the rationale of the program from the very start, involving all the different actors. And just to say, okay, is it worth it? So that's what also our university always says. So shall we do it? Is it worth it? I would say that certainly the benefits are much higher than the costs. Of course, it's challenging, but there are benefits for students, for institutions, and I'm not going to speak about that because you're all aware of it. But I just wanted to mention also, we should think that these programs and this experiment somehow are really kind of a test bed for innovation, okay? So testing, of course, virtual blended mobility, new types of innovative pedagogies, intercultural skills, global challenges, how can they be put all together? And just testing also international cooperation models. And they are also a very important driving force, at least I see it from a university perspective, for internationalization in general, internationalization at home, of course, institutional changes. So through these programs, then the institution develops its own internal regulation and mechanisms, and that's so important. There have been so many internal developments thanks to the push of these programs, and also national developments in legislation, and of course developments in teaching and research. So really university play a critical role in these developments, and we are here to contribute. So I really think it is worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alessandra. What a marvelous way of finishing this workshop. I think we're all sort of blown away by the talk and the advice. I think we need to draw this to a close, Maria Luisa. It might be better to save the discussion for another time, because you will need a few minutes before the graduation ceremony, I think.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Alessandra. Thank you. I just want to say that the Erasmus program was the most successful project in Europe, I can say. I'm part of the dinosaur generation who did not benefit of the Erasmus, but yeah, I mean, I think that most of you did. And second, I mean, the second really very important project that really are making Europe is the research infrastructure, because really through the research infrastructure, people started to move, to work together, to share experiences. So I think that, yeah, so two very nice projects.
With your
thank you, Alessandra. So we will collaborate again.
Yes.
So thank you very much. So thank you to all. We close the. we close this workshop, and we will start in a few minutes the graduation. So I'll invite all the alumni, the students, our pupils to go that direction, to vest, and also the professors, and all the others can have, coffee and a good break.